Martha Higdon, and my website is quiltingbymartha.com. Today I'm going to show you how to put binding on your quilt while it's still in the long arm. So after you have all your binding cut, folded in half, we're going to lay it out. Since I did an edge to edge on this quilt, I'm at the bottom. I'm going to work myself up to the top. So I find the center of my binding and I pin it to the center of the quilt. And I'm going to lay out my binding strip right on my basting line. Another thing I'm going to check first is over here. I'm going to make sure that my quilt is square. So you need a square ruler, and then you put it down on your quilt to make sure that it is square. If not, you'll have to adjust. So you need a square up ruler to check that out. Then I'm going to lay my binding back on that basting line. And then what I do is I'm just going to use my long arm pins, and I'm going to pin them periodically just to hold them in place so they don't move on me, right on the basting line. Then I get to the corner. The corner is just like if you were doing it on your domestic machine. You're going to do the 45-degree angle and flip it back down. So again, the 45-degree angle, and it's going to look just like that. And then I pin on both sides, again checking for that 45-degree angle. Ideally, we're going to try to come up to this corner. We're going to come around and come to this other side. I'm going to continue to pin up the side of my quilt, trying not to move my 45-degree angle. My mitered corner. Depending on how much throat space, depends how far you can go on the sides. All right, that looks pretty good as far as we can get up on the side. So I want to show you that this is a Handy Quilter Forte, and I have my Handy Quilter square foot. I have the 1/4 of an inch seam square foot. If you can see the foot that's attached. And so I'm going to start in the middle. And pull my bobbin thread up. And you can do this free motion, or you can put your ruler base on and use your ruler to go right in there to keep it in a straight line. I will try to do it without the ruler. You could use the edge of the foot as your guide. Removing those pins, we don't want them anywhere near our machine. And then, so what I want to show you is, when you get the quilt off, you can then gauge your batting and your backing. So what you do on the back is you're going to flip it and then flip it under. So here's a way to test to make sure you have enough, because you want your binding to be fullness. So it looks like I have just enough that it's going to be able to flip half and half and still come out full. But you can leave yourself a little bit of batting in there if you need it a little bit more full. If you want it fuller, but it should be full. I'm just going to continue following my line. Again, removing the pins as I go. Oops. Nice and steady. Again, I'm keeping my fabric on the basting line. You see the quilt and the edge is extending just a little bit, but we want to keep it on the basting line because we know that basting line is square. This is the tricky part, coming into the corner. So I usually take it right to the corner, right to the edge, and then I'm going to come to a diagonal to the end. And I'm going to flip it, come back up to the top, flip it back over, and then come right in there at the edge. And then when I'm hand stitching it down on the back side. If I miss a little bit, I can go back in there and use the hand stitching to get it, because there might be a little gap there. But you want to make sure that you have enough for when you flip it to the back. It's a little out of my reach there, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to tie off my thread. And someone asked me why I start in the middle and do both sides. It just makes it easier, because when we get to the top, we're still going to have to do the diagonal stitch to tie the two binding strips together. So if we start in the middle and we work ourselves up, it'll all come out together. So I'm going to advance my quilt now, so I'm going to